So for this lesson, we will be reviewing negative exponents and what to do with them. So first rule is we are not allowed to have a final answer with negative exponents. So if you see that you have negative exponents in your final answer, we got to do something about it. And what are we going to do? Well, whenever you have a negative exponent, it is the same thing as saying 1 over that number to the positive power. So x to the negative 8th will become 1 over x to the 8th times x to the 5th. This is also the same thing as x to the 5th over x to the 8th. And just like we learned in the product and quotient of a powers video, we can subtract our exponents. So that's 8 minus 5. But since the 8 is bigger, it's going on the bottom. Another way we could think of this is, since we are multiplying x to the negative 8th times x to the positive 5th, we just add the exponents together. So that's x to the negative 8 plus 5. Negative 8 plus 5 is equal to negative 3. So this becomes x to the negative 3rd power, and that is 1 over x to the 3rd there, which is the exact same thing as we just got. So let's take a look at another example of this. So here we have x to the negative 3rd, y to the 5th, y to the 7th times x to the negative 3rd. Here, what we're doing is, first we want to combine like exponents. So again, we could do x to the negative 3 times x to the negative 3. That's going to become x to the negative 6, y to the 5th times y to the 7th becomes y to the 12th. Now that we have a negative exponent here, that is going underneath our fraction. So we get x to the 6th times y to the 12th. Again, wherever there's a negative exponent, just drop that underneath. So another way we could see this is, since x to the 3rd and x to the negative 3rd and x to the negative 3rd, they're both negative. We just move both of those underneath our fraction. We get y to the 5th times y to the 7th up top. Think of it like this. If the exponents are positive, pause, don't do anything. If it's a negative, it's no good and it's got to go. So we get y to the 12th over x to the 6th, which is the same answer that we have there. So example 3 here. We have a to the negative 3 times b to the 5th all over a times b to the negative 1st. Now, this problem, things are a little different. 1, we have a fraction, and 2, we have a negative in our denominator. And what do we do if we have a negative in our denominator? Well, all we need to do is take it and move it up top. So we now have b to the 5th times b to the 1st in our numerator up top in our fraction. And we take a to the negative 3rd, and that's getting moved to the bottom of our fraction. So that's a. Again, if it's just a, that means it's a to the 1st. A times a to the 3rd now on the bottom. Now we just add our exponents. Up top becomes b to the 6th. On the bottom becomes a to the 4th. So let's take a look now at one more example. So for this, we have 18 x to the negative third, y to the negative fourth, all over 27x squared. Now what do we do with this? Well, first thing we notice is we have coefficients in front of our variables here. So 18 over 27. First thing we should do is to simplify those. 18 over 27, well, the greatest common factor between both of those is 9. So you can divide 9 into both, and that will reduce to 2/3. Next, we want to take all our negative exponents and get rid of them. So here we have x to the negative third, y to the negative fourth. That means they're getting dropped down to the denominator of our fraction. So we have x squared times x to the third times y to the fourth. So this now becomes 2 all over 3. X to the second times x to the third becomes x to the fifth times y to the fourth there. So your final answer is 2 over 3x to the fifth, y to the fourth.